Leadership isn't just changing, it's evolving in ways we're only just beginning to imagine. And women, we're not playing this game anymore. We're the ones reshaping the entire field, building models, movements, and businesses that serve more than just a few. On the She Leads podcast, you'll hear real conversations with women who've broken through all kinds of barriers: revenue, identity, borders, and expectations. There's no sugarcoating here, just the truth, told by those who are living it. I'm Adrienne Garland, entrepreneur, strategist, educator, and creator of live experiences, gathering women leaders together for over a decade. And this is the She Leads podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the She Leads podcast. I'd like to kick off today's episode with a request. If you haven't done so already, before you listen into this episode, please pause and take just 2 minutes to go over and give the show a 5-star rating and review. It's so important to share the journeys, wisdom, and lessons of the women entrepreneurs and leaders that we feature here on the She Leads podcast. And the best way to do that is to rate, review, and share this show with anyone that you think is interested in seeing more leaders in this world. And we certainly need more women leaders in this world. Thank you so much for helping to share our incredible show with more people. Now, my next guest turned a struggling hub airport into one of the most celebrated airports in the world. And she did it by asking an unexpected question. What does this place mean to the people who live here? Christina Cassotis is the CEO of the Allegheny County Airport Authority, overseeing Pittsburgh International and Allegheny County Airport. Under her leadership, Pitt became the first airport in the U.S. built from the ground up post-pandemic, the first major airport in the world powered entirely by a microgrid, and one of Fast Company's most innovative companies in the world. Air Transport World named it Airport of the Year and then inducted it into their inaugural Hall of Fame. The daughter of a pilot, Christina came up through Boston Logan and Global Aviation Consulting before landing in Pittsburgh, where she's been rewriting what an airport can be ever since. Christina, welcome to the She Leads podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you. I love listening to your
I cannot wait to speak with you. You truly have an extraordinary and unique role. We don't talk to many women in the aviation industry here on the She Leads podcast. And so before we sort of get into everything, why don't you take us back and let us know, how you came into this world and actually how you, have risen to the heights of success here.
Thank you. Gosh. So I'm from New England. My parents were married very young. My mom was 19, my dad was 22, and my father actually quit MIT. He had gotten a 4-year all expense paid scholarship to MIT, which was the only way he could have afforded to go. His dad had died when he was 15. His mother made light bulbs in the Sylvania light bulb factory on the midnight shift. And my father got this scholarship to MIT and he quit in his sophomore year and he joined the Marine Corps and became an A4 fighter pilot off an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean during the Vietnam War, and then was recruited by Pan American in the mid-60s. So my mom, who had not necessarily traveled a lot in those days, travel was very expensive. So my mother and my father and me, we moved to Hong Kong when I was 2.5. And my father flew R&R missions into and out of Saigon with Pan Am when they were bringing soldiers out for R&R weekends in Hong Kong. We lived there for a few years and then settled in Sleepy, New Hampshire, a suburb of Boston. I went to UNH
on purpose,
flunked out on purpose. Yeah, on purpose. I hated, or I didn't want to be there. These were the days before, everybody was taking you on college tours. It was sort of like you're going to college and you're going here. Now, that was with a bunch of, it seemed like everybody from my high school was there. And I just thought, I don't want to do this. So I got 7 Fs and a B plus because I loved my Spanish phonetics class and I wouldn't stop. I moved to Boston. I waitressed and bartended for 6, 7 years, and then went
Yeah.
back to school to get a degree in English at UMass Boston. Got a job in government, actually in PR with an energy office, then went to communities and development, and then got recruited to Massport, to the Massachusetts Port Authority, which oversees Boston Logan International Airport, and had the question that I think a lot of people still ask today, which is, I didn't know airports had people working there. I thought they were just run by the airlines. Got into PR there, got recruited by a global aviation consultancy, and eventually worked my way up to run the global airport practice, which was working with airports around the world in areas of competitiveness. I was based in Boston, but we had a team in New York, London, and Beijing. So I spent 17 years traveling the world, leading teams, working with everything from infrastructure investors who were buying and selling airports in Europe, doing their due diligence, our teams did due diligence, to working with US airports on areas of not the operational side, but the business side. And then in 2015, got a call.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, and
No
said,
way.
absolutely not.
Right.
Why would anybody go to Pittsburgh to run the airport? Because 10
Okay.
years earlier, US Airways had dehubbed it. And we were all pretty horrified in the industry, like, how can they do that? So 10 years later, they were recruiting for a CEO. And basically, as a favor to the headhunter, I said, sure, I'll go down for the interview. I'm sure you need to put the female candidate in front of them, right? My first, I always say to people, always help a headhunter, always, that you never know when you're going to need them. So I actually said after the second interview, the person who appoints the board had me meet with 4 or 5 CEOs in the community, like BNY Mellon, the company that sold to Alcoa, RTI. They did all the composite metal manufacturing for aircraft. And I was like, I had no idea about this community. And they know what they lost, and I can help them rebuild it. I said to my husband, it's 3 years. Don't worry.
Wow.
11.
What year was that?
That's my story. Yeah.
2015.
2015.
Wow.
I started
and I mean,
January of
Pittsburgh is a vibrant, amazing city. It's got a bad rap, or maybe not so anymore, or it used to have a bad rap, but it's beautiful.
It is. I just think that it didn't know for just such a long time. Steel collapsed in the 80s and 90s. US Airways left in 04. It felt like I remember. I remember. First of all, it's such an underdog, and I think that it really did a job on people here feeling like, oh well, hold on, we don't know what'll happen. So I would say that it started to tell its story differently over the last few years. It was one of my jobs in talking to airlines globally was, wait a minute. I mean, remember the first time I went to visit airlines in Europe, and one of their CEOs was like, what are you doing in Pittsburgh? Like, you have to understand. So I was a great evangelist. And I think that the city and the region has been
Who they are
for a long time, but is now starting to understand, wait a minute. Yeah. But also that we're not going to go back. Like, it's okay. We can move forward. And
gosh, a lot of very interesting, almost life lessons in what you're talking about here. And, one of the things is, well, first of all, you're a very confident, bold person to say, I don't like this, but yet I don't know exactly what it is that I do like. Let me take some time and just be, almost, right? Like, we go to college and we're babies, and they expect us to figure out the rest of our lives when we're 17 years old. And it is just absolutely ridiculous. One of the things that I love is that you don't have to have your whole entire life planned out for your life to turn out really great. So I hope that everybody listening into this hears that. especially my students who think that they need to have everything, buttoned up or else they're going to be failures sleeping in the gutter.
Well,
Right.
first of all, we don't believe you if you say you do. I don't believe any 23-year-old unless, like my brother knew
Oh,
when he was 6 years old he was gonna be a dog doctor. And
wow.
he's a veterinary ophthalmologist, like weird specialty, but he's great at it. Yeah, but for a lot of us, we have to discover it and we have to allow ourselves to see where we really
I
belong. And
do
I
too.
I actually think there's a lot of value in that. Um, and I also am
Yeah.
a huge
Yeah.
believer that college is not for everybody. It really and I think that, I work with 8 trade unions here at the airport, and good luck running a civilized society without plumbers, electricians, HVAC,
Yes.
carpenter. Like we need people, and that is
Yeah.
that is a super skill. It's like being a musician. I mean,
Yeah.
the way some people's brains work, we need all of that. So, um, I'm somebody said to me, and when I got to the consulting company, the woman who hired me, she was fierce, and she said to somebody, you should really talk to Christina. And somebody said, oh, she had all those lost years. And I thought, oh, that's so funny that you think
Yeah.
that. For like, I had a blast. I used to say to my I remember saying to my parents, I'm avoiding a midlife crisis, so I'm good.
Oh, I love that.
I did everything
I
I
love
wanted to
that.
do,
Yeah, that
man.
doesn't sound like any lost years to me. That sounds
Yeah,
like figuring it out. Yeah, that's incredible.
it
And
was.
yeah, I think we do push people into roles that end up really not, fitting who we are. And you're 100% right. I'm
Yeah.
sure that at least in some way it avoided something. We know how life goes. But I also find it very curious that you ended up back in the industry that your dad was in, and it just seems serendipitous. Like, did you think that you even wanted to? Yeah. Ha-
No, I knew. So in the old days, for any of your listeners who grew up with parents who worked with airlines, in the old days, like this ended 40 years ago, they would give all of the non-rep, all of the parents, children of the pilot or flight attendant. We had
Yes.
it looked like a credit
Yes.
card. Remember with the raised letters? Remember those? And I would go down to Federal Street in Boston where the Pan Am had a ticket office, and I would say, "Can I have 3 tickets?" And they would run it
No
off,
way.
and I would go to the airport and fill in where I wanted to go. Way. And and I would have to call a special 800 number. It was a non-rev line, and you would list yourself as a non-revenue passenger. And if there were seats open, you would get on the plane according to seniority. Like I wasn't going to get on before the wife of a 747 captain, right? I'm right. So, but here's the thing: I didn't realize that only lasted as long
Uh,
as I was a dependent or
uh,
in college. So I
uh,
flunked out.
how
I
amazing
lost
would
it.
that have
I
been to,
yelled.
you know, okay, you did.
No, I used it. Yeah, my last trip, I was going to go to Rio because a girlfriend of mine who I had
Of
waitressed
course.
with had
That's
fallen
of
in love with the
course.
busboy and moved to Rio. Okay, she did. Of course she did. It was really cool. And
Mm,
I wrote my ticket, Boston, New York, Rio, because you had to look things up in the official airline guide in those days. And when I got
mm,
to New York, the flight was canceled at Kennedy.
yeah.
And they don't take care of non-revs. They're not putting you in a hotel. And I had money. So, because my parents, once I quit school, they were like, you are
Yeah.
on your own. We have 3 other kids. This was your shot, which was the best thing ever, right? So I wrote myself a ticket because I could go 2 places at
Of
8
course,
o'clock at
as
night,
one
back to
does.
Boston or London. So I flew to London one day. Parents were happened to be there. I talked my way into their hotel room. I took a shower. I left my mother. I had read The Color Purple on the way over. I left it with a note, flew back to New York, flew to Rio. When I got home, my father called me. He said, damn it, young lady, you cannot leave this country without
Oh
telling me. And I'm like,
my
oh, right.
gosh.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to fly, but I didn't want to be a pilot. I didn't want to be a flight attendant. So I sort of felt like, well, what else can you do? And I look at kids today. My son graduated last year. I just think of all
Hmm.
the awareness they have. I mean, you're a professor, you're talking to kids that have seen more and have more awareness of the world than I did
Yeah.
at that age. I just didn't know what was possible. Um, and I'm not sure I would have known what to do it even if I had.
Mm.
I just needed to figure out what I could do. So I got a job in PR and sort of in PR at an airport. And I just remember thinking, like, this is the coolest place ever.
Yeah.
Everything is about possibility. And
Mm.
somebody's on their way to something important or on their way back. And I'm fascinated at how I'm a big underdog fan. So how
Mm.
most people don't really understand the role of
Hmm.
airports. And by the way, that's in the industry itself. Airlines, manufacturers, where I
Right.
call it, we're the unsexy leg of the stool that supports the industry. And my job
Mm.
or my interest is in changing that and getting more people interested
Mm.
in a career in airports and having more
Well,
people understand what we do
I want
because
to
it
dive
really
into that and
matters.
I want to
It matters
understand it. And I
a lot.
also I think it's fascinating because when you speak to CEOs, the path isn't often, from marketing and PR to CEO, right? It's often either, the financial path or the operations path. So I'm so inspired that you have this incredible background and clearly communication is one of your top skills. I'm sure you have all the other skills now that you have acquired over all of the years. And I think that that's also something that women, we excel in this area of communication. And it's been a skill that has been, I think, overlooked. But I think an amazing path to being a CEO that really truly needs to understand every single component of a business and how it all works together. So can you talk about how all of your skills, I mean, I would even say from waitressing and making sure that you're serving the customer, you're truly in the hospitality industry even now. So can you just talk a little bit about that because you're serving people? Right? You're getting people from place to place.
I want to thank you so much for recognizing this. First of all, how's it working out for all those CFOs when they become CEOs? If you can't communicate the value of what you do to the people who work for you and they don't feel like they're part of something meaningful, then I don't care how great the organization is. Nobody below a certain level gets
Yeah.
up in the morning thinking, I can't wait to increase
No.
shareholder value. It's not what motivates people. And this is where there's a disconnect. So I feel really strongly that communication is the skill that you've got to have the aptitude to learn operations and finance and IT and human resources and everything that makes an organization sustainable in the long run. I mean, I call it legacy first leadership. Like I am all about when I leave
Mm.
here, what's going to be left behind and how can it continue. So in service of a mission, you have to communicate constantly. Sort of, you've got to hold that tension between what are we doing today and why does it matter, not only for our stakeholders, but actually that's not true. Why does it matter for our stakeholders? And you're the most important group we've got to get to first. In other words, if your team doesn't understand what you're doing and why, I don't understand
Yeah.
how no strategy is worth anything if it doesn't get executed, right? So I think that there's a huge opportunity for the communication path as long as you understand what you're communicating and you understand the content that you're the filter, right? And I really do believe that especially when we saw this in COVID, um, I understood how few leaders
Mm.
were not saying anything to their teams. I mean, in really big organizations. And the reason I know this is because when COVID, 3 days before COVID, we
Mm.
had just been in China on a work trip. Earlier, we knew something was coming. And so
And
we
you
dusted
had
off our
a pandemic
pandemic
readiness
readiness plan.
plan.
And I remember We all have to. As airports, we are all
Wow.
the
Okay.
stuff that we have to have. We are ready for anything, anything. I mean, we live
Mhm.
in constant crisis readiness and prep because anything can happen any day of the week. Even what's happening with fuel prices today, that will affect us at some point. I can talk about that later. But anyway, so during COVID, we got together, and I remember I pulled my senior team together, and in 8 hours we set out the policies for how we were going to run. And my head of HR, who's brilliant, said, listen, the way we really need to do it is we need to split all teams up into two teams. Frontline workers have to be here, so we have to adjust the way they work so that they are not in contact with others. But as management teams, like somebody said, well, who's
All of
essential?
us. Yeah.
Who's not? You know, who's not? I don't want to talk. We can say essential on site and essential remote. So we labeled it. That matters. And then every 2 weeks, I didn't see my CFO for 18 months in person because every 2 weeks we rotated. And so we said, okay, team one is the 1st to the 15th of the month. They're in the office, and team two, 16 to end of the month. And I said, I'm on team two. Somebody said, why? I said, because everybody will think team one is the best. Think about that. Then we decided, I held a call every Wednesday, first shift, second shift, third shift, 11:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m. No, what was it? 10:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. for 14 months. Every Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I got on the phone and I said, here's what we're doing. Here's why. Because I knew the front
Right.
lines would feel like, oh, great, you're taking care of yourselves and not us. And so I would say, let me ask you something. How essential do you think
Right.
finance is? What happens if you don't get paid? What happens if the whole finance department goes down because one person comes in and affects? Like we explained it in ways where we would talk and people would say, how long do you think this will last? And I said, I don't know that, but here's what I do know. Air travel always comes back. So that to me was, and the reason I know this is because people would have their
Yeah.
spouses listening in because nobody was talking to them. And so for me, communication, we didn't lose anybody, fortunately. And we actually used that time. We held food drives for the food pantry because we saw the lines on the highways. We said, we've got empty parking lots, do it here. Our teams volunteered. We ran pet food drives. We parked 100 aircraft for American Airlines on our center runway, got the FAA to sign off on that. Like we did things because we knew we had to keep this place open for all of the essential workers, healthcare workers who were going back and forth because air travel has to keep and when all of the PPE came in, our field maintenance team, the people who plow the snow, cut the grass, the mechanics, they figured out a chute that would go from the top level of an aircraft down so the packages could land for Cathay Pacific. Like we just like everybody understood we are essential. We as a team have to be ready when we reopen. To me, that's about communicating. We got your back. You got to show it. You got to line up your words and you have to line up. That's the part people get wrong. And we have to communicate that we're going to get through this. And I think that is every leader's job. And I don't think, we have a comms department, but to me, that's about distributing a message. It's not about or refining it, but it's not about necessarily always creating it. I actually don't understand leaders who outsource their communication because the communication is not just what you see, it's what you say, it's what you do. Those have to line up. And I think for really strategic thinkers, and I see this a lot, is people can see that's where the distrust happens is there's something's not lining up there. And all of that is a communication, right? All of it is a communication. So that's to me, I think it's
and I think that communication was classified as a soft skill. And yes, I'm all for the rebrand to a core skill. Yeah.
And I'm big on it for everybody because if people can't repeat why what they're doing is important, then it's just a job. And I will tell you that airports we badge, I don't know, 6,000 people work at the airport, not necessarily for us, but between the airlines and the ground handlers and the, concessionaires. And every one of those people has to go through a background check. Right. And the reason that we have to do a background check for the Chick-fil-A worker as well as the ground handler
Yes.
is because
Yes.
just think of what you have access to.
Mm-hmm.
Everything beyond security is like the cockpit. Okay. So if people aren't okay, if they're not doing well, if they don't feel valued and respected
Yeah.
and included, they can get cranky, right? We see that. So how we take care of people, how we communicate that has a lot to do about what we tell them, when, why, how, and that to me is the difference between what we've been able to do
And even
what I wish other airports would do.
companies in general, because there is a lot of information that is held back because there's not certainty around the message. And what you said about being able to say, I do not know, but what I know is this. Those two pieces must be communicated because you can't just dismiss that you don't know. It's an uncertain situation, and every single leader faces uncertainty at one time or another. Hey everyone. So for years, I've been working with Dr. Kent and sending people in my network his way. He does so much impact work. What do I mean by that? Well, he helps people create books and podcasts and things like that. He even helps with this podcast behind the scenes. Dr. Kent is my thought partner. Anyone listening knows that we all need to do what we can to get our thoughts, opinions, and voices out into the world, and how important it is for women to invest in other women and for women to hire other women. I am all about that, and you all know that. But in this case, I think Dr. Kent is an exception. He's doing something really different via this new program that he's launched called the Genius Discovery Program. So he wants to work with people like me and like you who are impact driven. Dr. Kent has an intensive program that goes for a month. He also has a 3-month program where he figures out where you're headed with your brand, your business, your speaking, and your signature story as a thought leader. I've known Dr. Kent for a long time. So believe me when I say that he has a ton of experience working with people that are looking to make an impact but might not know exactly how to approach that. So if you're interested in talking to him, you can go directly to talktokent.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at She Leads Media, or just shoot me an email over at hello@sheleadsmedia.com.
I just find it fascinating that people are waiting for it.
Nothing.
I mean, welcome to the world. What is certain?
No.
And exactly, but it never was, And so and I we attract people who are adrenaline junkies and people who really like change. I think that's, in aviation, you're working in a globally connected, highly interdependent industry where something that happens halfway across the world that you have nothing to do with will affect you and your team. Every time there is an aircraft incident, we feel it because everything we're feeling is, oh God, we know what it feels. We know because we drill over and over again. We feel for the first responders. We feel for the families that we have to protect so the press can't get to them. We feel for the airline CEO who has to get on, and say something and then manage his team. And it's such a big deal. And we are always looking at, how are the people doing? And people for us are our staff. They're the passengers. They're the meeters and greeters. They're the partners. They're the people who may not even think they depend on the airport, but believe me, they do. We are a huge transplant center,
wow.
organ transplant center here in Pittsburgh. So we can't afford to close ever because if planes can't land, organs can't come in, transplant teams can't get in. So when we built our microgrid, which was 5 years ago, by the way, and we're the only ones in the world with it. We are the only energy independent, site hardened infrastructure as an airport in the world. We did it because we just thought we had seen a couple of airports go through some energy crises where they'd have to close for a day. And the ripple effect on the system is massive. So we didn't ever want it. We were in the point of sort of rebranding and rebuilding our reputation. I thought that is not anything I ever want to do. So with a private sector partner, we're able to, we generate all of our energy on site and the grid is our backup. And when we talk to people, we talk about the fact that 500 organs come through our two airports, our general aviation and our commercial airport every year.
Yeah, you can't afford to shut down.
So I don't, know, and it's not fair. We can't afford to shut down in a snowstorm, which is why we spend so much time, training our snowplow teams, and why our snow and ice control team is literally got awarded as the best in the country last year. Like, we are really focused on what we can control and how we talk about that, and how we talk about the importance of that and what it means to the industry.
I'm blown away. How are you also teaching other airports how to implement some of these things? Because if you are the only airport with a microgrid, I'm sure others are looking to you as the best in class, and they want to implement that too. So, I mean, that's another part of the job that I can't even imagine, right? Because you got to focus at the job at hand, and then you're also leading the way for other airports.
Yeah, but as goes the industry, so goes us. In other words, we need the industry to do better. So one of the things, here, first of all, I would say it's not teaching, it's sharing. And I mean that because there's a lot we learned from other airports as well. And I think that U.S. airports have always been incredibly safe and secure. We have always been operationally excellent. But we haven't always been the best at passenger service, customer amenity, et cetera. If you take a look at European and Asian airports, right, you tend to see a different experience. So we are, as airport executives, we don't compete on anything that has to do with safety, security, passenger experience. We actually all talk to each other. And we happen to sit on top of the largest natural gas deposit in the U.S., the Marcellus Shale. So we extract gas on site. We have a third party that does it. Not everybody does, but that doesn't mean that's the only way to build a microgrid. So we do a lot. We do a lot with the industry. We've written case studies. We've hosted airlines and airports who want to understand what we did and how. And we're, whether it's our Pitt to Work program, which was really about getting more people interested in the building trades, and then working on our terminal modernization program, or our suite of sensory rooms that we built years ago at the suggestion of one of our snowplow drivers, or it's the advanced manufacturing campus that we've built on 195 acres. Like, we're just always looking at how can our footprint solve problems for the industry and for the region. And how can we get more people excited about careers?
Wow. Yes. Airports? Well, this is the first step in doing that. And I have an idea for you.
Yeah.
Why not? Also, if you have, a campus and for people to come, why not have an incubator program? There we go. See?
Well, we have one. We do. We have it. It's called the X Bridge. We do. And we're 500 people on my staff, and that's running everything. So, we're lean, but we are really focused on impact, and we're really focused on improving it in the industry and in the region. So it's a passion project of mine and many people on the team. And we're really, I'm excited. One of the things I measured when I got here, I said to the head of HR, I said, how many applicants do we have for a position? It was 2. Now,
quiet.
11 years ago, this place was, it was quiet, but it was also, people were really, they were just so beaten up. They had lost so much at the airport itself. You go from not being able to cross a taxiway because there were so many aircraft to just empty gates, empty terminals. And so there's a there's a huge opportunity to get more people interested. But at the time, people wouldn't have said, oh my God, I can't wait to go work there. Now we get hundreds of applicants per position. I'm able to attract leaders from other industries. And I think that's really exciting because there's always, look, we're still a business. We still have the need, actually the mandate to be self-sufficient. None of us rely on taxpayer dollars, local or state. So we are always having to
I would love to dive into that just so that people can understand sort of the business of the airport. You touched on all the different, functions, but I would love to really understand. So, where does the revenue sort of come from in an airport? And obviously we know what the expenses are, but how does an airport increase and diversify revenue?
Right. That's a brilliant question. I love it. You're a great interviewer. So, I mean, really, truly. So, first of all, there are two governance structures in the United States around airports, and this is actually really important. So, the way that airports used to be, well, airports are either a department of a city, state, or county. So, there's the education department, the roads and sewers department, right? And the aviation department. And then you report to a mayor or a governor or a county executive, and you don't have a contract. And when the mayor or the county executive or the governor leaves, they say, oh, I want somebody new in that position. So how easy do you think it is to drive change into an organization like that? Because here's what TikTok, how long you staying? I'm not doing that. I got a to protect. Then there's the authority model. And the authority model is that the governing body appoints a board of directors, volunteer in the US, okay? So we're a county executive system, and 25 years ago in Allegheny County, because that's where the physical land sits, it doesn't sit in the city, the county said, we're going to change our form of government to a county executive, and we want to professionalize the airport. We want to not have it be subject to politics. So I report to a 9-member board made up of business people, and I think there's one elected official on the board who represents our district at the state level. And I want to be really clear. Governance is one piece of it, but then it's the people. I have seen beautifully run, really fantastic city airports, and I have seen poorly run authorities. So it's really about who's doing what and what kind of accountability and possibility there is. So we are all mandated in the United States. We are government or quasi-government institutions, and we have a mandate from the FAA that says we must be self-sufficient. We must. And here's why. And then there's another rule that says no revenue generated at an airport can be taken off an airport. So I can't. So when we were building this new terminal and roadway system and parking structure, people said, we could do so much downtown. It's like, no, you don't take what's made here and downtown. And the reason is the FAA, through a tax that comes from your tickets, funds our runway, pavement, rehabs, and if we have to completely resurface a runway, that's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So we get 80-90% matches airport by airport that we apply for. So if they're giving us money, they're like, no, you don't get to take the money and then go take it off the airport. You've got to invest it back into the airport, right? So the way we make money is through parking. It's basically, hold on. It's based, and we have an obligation to be competitive in our pricing. Again, I can't, people are like, parking's expensive. I'm like, I'm benchmarking it to downtown and other airports. And if I give it away for $1, there's an opportunity cost. There's an opportunity cost to not making the money that I could make if I were benchmarking the pricing, right? It's parking. It's the percentage of revenue from McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Shake Shack. Okay. Right. So they pay to lease space in our terminal, and then the percentage of revenue, it's every time a taxi lift picks up or drops off, we take a fee because our roadway systems get pretty beaten up. We sit on a very large land footprint. So every hangar that's leased, there's a cost to basically
Mm,
we're a user fee generated facility. Okay. So our expenses are pretty fixed because
right.
you don't sort of turn on and off parts of an airport. So we have an annual O&M budget or operating and maintenance budget, and we have debt service. And then here's how it works. We have an agreement with the airlines. All the airlines sign one agreement. In other parts of the world, if they're privately held, sometimes airlines and airports have different agreements depending on who the airline is. We don't do that in the US. So in the US, all the airlines get together, they have a committee. We negotiate with them every whatever, so many years. And we stipulate what revenue we'll put into the maintenance and operating of the airport,
Mm,
and anything that's left over, they pay for
got it.
according to a formula based on passengers. Okay. So, in other words, now there are airports and authorities that are grandfathered: New York, Boston, Seattle. So money generated at JFK can go pay for things that the New York, New Jersey Port Authority runs outside of the airports. Same thing in
You're
Boston,
not, yeah.
but they're grandfathered. We're not. So all the revenue that's generated here, including the percentage, we get a royalty from the gas drilling. All that goes into the pot according to an agreement with the airlines, and then we figure out what's the delta between what it costs and the revenue we've earned. And there's almost no airport where in other words, it's very expensive to run this infrastructure. 24/7, 365, and you need us to. Like I always say to people, you need us open all the time. This is important. We're national critical transportation infrastructure. We have 2 military bases on the airport. Yeah, an air refueling wing for the National Guard and an air refueling wing for the U.S. Air Force and the Pennsylvania Air National Guard.
Yeah,
so
that's such a great way to put it. Okay? Yeah,
so we're a city, and we run 24/7, 365. Like we are always open, and some airports have noise curfews. We don't, and we are always looking at how to diversify our revenue. So we're very dependent on passengers, but we're always looking for ways that aren't passenger dependent. So
yes,
the advertising in an airport. That's roughly based on how many passengers, but we actually just entered into we're the first in the country to partner with a company called Legends, which is owned by George Steinbrenner and Jerry Jones. And they do all of the sponsorships for stadiums, and we're the first airport they've ever worked with. So we've got this whole different model, and we're 9x what we used to make in ad spend. And it's all local. Because it's so we're constantly looking at how can we push raising revenue that's not necessarily passenger dependent, but also, efficiency and cost reduction that doesn't threaten our primary mission, which is to run a safe and secure operation and take care of people, right? Like I'm never going to have AI bots for customer service agents ever. People don't, maybe there'll be something, but there will always be a person, because people don't just want information.
They want to be seen. And heard.
They want seen. And especially if something's wrong, and something goes wrong a lot in aviation. So yes, we are all pro technology, but
we talk about the balance of AI and hospitality in our classes all the time. And, we're always like, what's the line where, you can leverage and maximize the technology and retain the humanity? And, the answer is always like, it depends, right?
But anything that's, to me, anything that's passenger facing it's a person, because it doesn't filter. Look, AI is great and even agentic AI. All agentic AI is a to-do list with a bunch of processes behind it. Let's be really clear. Okay. So I still you can tell me here's all the things it can do. I'm like, wait, who's going to check to make sure it did the right things? Who's going to filter which one of these things we should do? And we have too much at stake every day. We are looking at, what part of a task, what part of a role can AI
What can
and
technology do to
take
help
us
us be
forever.
more
Like,
efficient?
technology is
And
good.
effective.
What can it do? Yeah. But at the end of the day, travel
Yes.
hospitality is about taking care of people. So to your point, my
I
waitressing and
know.
bartending days, I learned more doing I'm that when you're living on tips, the success of your
Yeah.
work
Right.
is not decided by you.
Right.
It's decided by your customer. And to me, that is the way I work. It's our success is going to be based on a whole lot of people who
Yeah.
we don't get to say, but trust me, we did such a great job.
Mm.
You have to show it, and you have to show it in ways that they understand. So, um, yeah, I think
I think
everybody
so
should work in
too,
hospitality.
especially entrepreneurs that need to truly understand who their customer is and not just try to push their brilliant ideas down people's throats. And we don't even want some of this stuff. Like, we need to understand people. And I don't think that we do a very good job. We're outsourcing our understanding to something that's not human.
Well, that's where you. I mean, and I see this. Consultants come out, and all the time in the early days, I would take all these meetings, and I would say, and then somebody would give me a pitch deck and say, "So we'd really like to understand, how you're seeing things." I'm like,
Yeah.
"There's a lot of interviews out
Right.
there. If you didn't do your homework, I can't help you." So here's the thing:
Right.
everybody's got an idea. What I want to know is, how does it relate to us? How does it relate to the problem we might be solving for? How does it relate to something we may not
Yeah.
be seeing? And how are you going to get it done? So I really believe that it's not the idea, it's the ability to get it executed and the ability for the
Right.
customer to feel like,
Right.
oh,
The
you're
deep
doing this for
understanding
me.
of what the customer experience is. And it's not just the passenger, the customer is everybody else that you named, including the people that are cutting the grass and plowing
Yeah.
the runway. Yeah. Yes.
And we need them.
Oh my gosh.
We have a wildlife department. We have 8,000 acres, and so you can't have deer running on runways. You can't have birds nesting. We have
Wow.
we have an apiary program, because when I got here, they were struggling with bee swarms, and if a bee
Yeah.
swarms an airplane wing, the plane can't take off. So
Okay.
we brought in a beekeeper, and um, so we brought in a beekeeper. He's not on staff. He's a contractor, and he set up. Now we have 250 apiaries because we don't use chemicals on our property. So we actually have
Beautiful. I mean, that
clean bee
benefits
population in
humanity
Pennsylvania at
truly,
one
because
point.
when the bees are no longer here, uh, they can't do their thing that feeds us.
Thing.
Right? I'm
Do the
struggling with the word, but they can't do the thing that
yeah,
feeds us. And if we're not fed, we're dead. So, yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yes. If you're not fed,
pretty much.
you're dead.
There you go. That's your book title. If we're not
Well, I mean,
dead.
Christina, you need to write a book if you haven't already. And if you have, please tell us the title. Okay.
I haven't. No, but it's funny. You know this, and I think this is very much a female thing. We all think, oh, I have to have proven myself. So I got 11 years under my belt. We opened the terminal. We changed the business model. We transformed the culture. We transformed the infrastructure. And I love what I do. I mean, I
Yeah.
really love what I do.
Well,
And I
how
want more
can they
people to
do
want
that?
to
How
do it and
can,
be part of it. So,
I hope that
yeah,
people
maybe.
listening to this interview and they feel your passion, because I feel your passion coming right through the computer
Mm.
through Riverside. And I'm sure that people are going to say, hey, I want to get involved. And even entrepreneurs like, hey, this isn't an area that I thought about. How can I help to solve some of the challenges? Because it's a really, really interesting area. So, what can people do?
I love how you have the second part of it. Well, first of all, listen, every airport has a website with jobs that are open. So look and see. I mean, and the nice thing about airports is that wherever you enter, if you're really good, you can find your way to any other place in the organization, right? I mean, I have a lot of people, and by the
Yeah.
way, a number of union people who have come out and gone into management. So there's lots of opportunities to get in almost anything that is needed anywhere in the world. We have environmental specialists, we have a finance
A
department, an
city.
IT department, a
Yeah.
legal department. Like we're running everything. First, but for the entrepreneurs, so our X Bridge, what we did, and this is about 5 or 6 years ago, is we actually brought in somebody from the accelerator community, and he went into the entrepreneur community and didn't say, "Hey, for those of you who can work at airports, airlines," he said, "For those of you who have technology, see if there's an application in aviation." And we actually have a team that says, "Yeah, let's see what that can do." So there are a number of airports that actually have either accelerators or pitch competitions or whatever, but we're always, because aviation moves, that airplane is taken off and it feels like it's fast, but the innovation in the industry to me is it could use some help. So I think we've tested 30 or 40 different companies over the last 5 years. And there are a lot of airports that do that. And we're not asking you to tell us what it can do. It's more like, do you think there's the question we're always looking for is, what can your technology do in this space that we haven't thought of yet? So we've actually helped launch a number of companies and products that have tested here. And we also partner with airports and airlines around the world because there's a huge robotics community in Pittsburgh, like big, right? This is where Uber was doing all its driverless car testing because CMU is a leader in all of that stuff. So there's a really huge robotics community here, and we're constantly looking at what can that do in an airport setting. It still works with how we have to operate our safety guidelines, our security guidelines, et cetera.
There definitely is in my NYU class, because the students are, in hospitality and travel and tourism and everything. They often come up with really interesting ideas. It oftentimes is passenger based, and how can somebody sort of have a level of comfort and be able to rejuvenate. There have been some really great ideas that have come out. So now that I know you, and I'm going to introduce you to some students, and you might want to hear some of their really, really amazing ideas.
And we're all a passenger at some point, and we all have unmet needs, and I'm always looking for how can we do better. There are some things we can do, some things that aren't in our control, but that doesn't mean we can't facilitate. So I think that at the end of the day, great business solves problems, right? It takes away people's pain. It makes things easier. And we're always open to those ideas. So that's what I'd say is,
well, we like you.
It can be any airport, but
we like Pittsburgh. So we'll join your accelerator. So, Christina, I really have just enjoyed this conversation so much. Sometimes, you might think that the aviation industry might feel a little boring, but it is dynamic and it is exciting. And I hope everybody can hear all of that come through. And I just want to thank you so much. If people do want to connect with you personally, how can they do so?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's actually the best way to do it is I'm on LinkedIn. Please say you heard it here. And that's the easiest way to do it.
I know that my students, I don't know if I could actually arrange anything like this, but we would love to come for a visit and a tour. I love it. Easy. Of course.
Just give me.
You don't want me coming down later today?
But yes, I will say. Well, because we have to get you badged, and there's a process. But when we were building our new terminal, roadway system, garage, et cetera, for your construction project while we operated, we gave, I think, over 200 tours. And I said to our construction manager, I said, so Rob, he built one of our contractors, great guy from PJ Dick Hunt. And I said, how many tours do you usually do? He's like, I've never seen this. I've literally never seen this. We brought everything from school kids to YPO to the chambers of commerce and because we wanted people to understand what we were doing and why. We wanted advocates. When people were like, why are we spending all this money? We actually created, we've suspended it. So that's why I need to know. but we were taking people through an active construction site. And we hired a former a guy who used to be in our comms department who would, he had left, and I called him. I said, "You're the only person I can think of that would actually do this." And he actually got the nickname of the tour board. I mean, he was, but it was,
and I think that's something that maybe another CEO wouldn't have necessarily even thought of, but having your PR background, you need to take people through the process. You need to weave the story, craft the story, tell them why. And I love it all. I have taken away so much knowledge and information, and I'm so excited. And I'm going to do even more of a deep dive. Maybe I'll plan a trip where I come through Pittsburgh.
Please. Please. Yeah, please. There's a lot of great stuff here that you probably don't even know.
There's a what?
So you know. There's a Warhol Museum.
Yes. Well, I did visit with my son, University of Pittsburgh, when he was looking at colleges, and I really wanted him to go there. And we do have a friend whose son just graduated from there. So yeah, I love it. My son didn't want to go because there wasn't a hockey team. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, this was great. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm flattered.
Well, I do too. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the week. And we really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge here on the She Leads podcast. If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently, please take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review. It's not just about boosting the show. It's about amplifying the voices of women entrepreneurs who are leading with vision, building with purpose, and shaping what's next. We need more of these conversations in the world right now, don't you think? And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who matters to you, send this episode to them. If there's something on your mind about leadership, legacy, or what's next, I want to hear it. Head to sheleadsmedia.com/voice and leave a voice memo or note. Your insight might just help shape a future episode. Make sure to follow the show and come back next week for more conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Thank you so much for listening. This is the She Leads Podcast Network. This is the She Leads Podcast Network.